Trav is Wayne Goodsell. Comment reply time. It might be posted tomorrow, depending on how long this goes. So as long as the Mormon employee doesn't attack, maybe it'll be quick. On my Mormon Jeopardy! That was well done, even though it's Sunday Night Live, rather than Saturday Night Live. Trial of Faith. Wow, so you recently found out that Joseph Smith was betrayed. 2017. Yeah, if you call that recently. I call it forever ago. This has been a very long latter days. And I'm concerned that it may go longer. And so, yeah, he learned about it from me a year and a half ago. At 29 minutes in, he says, I watched that video too. Cool to see you are always looking for more receipts and proof of your claims. Yeah, well, that's what I do. As a scientist, I'm naturally prone to continue to confirm research theory tests. And so even my Paleo-Hebrew decipherment and my Egyptian decipherment, when I do new videos for you, I'm running the test on my own theory of decipherment. So the Luxor Temple, the Edfu Temple, the Kamambo Temple of Egypt, yeah, those are all continuing to run the tests for you. And when I do a new Hebrew name or a Hebrew word for you, yep, I'm just running the test and continue to reconfirm, which after so many confirmations, it becomes a law. So, yeah, we're well established in my decipherments. And likewise with my study of church history. I keep on running the tests. There were thousands of Mormons in the early beginnings. And so there's lots of tests to run. And so I learned the basics so that I can establish the confirmed facts of the template of what to look for when others are run through the test as well. So that's why I tell you, check their connection to the Danites. Were they born and raised a Danite? Did they join as a Danite? Did they get converted by the Danites? Were they converted by Joseph Smith and his original crew? And what happened when the Danites confronted them? Did they turn coat on Joseph, or did they remain loyal to Joseph? And if they remain loyal to Joseph, you can tell because they would have been framed and blamed like Joseph was. Right, Sidney Rigdon? And your daughter? Gotta pay attention. The Danites are evil, and they are now overthrowing the world. But the Trump ICE 2025 video will be tomorrow morning, regardless of whether this video ends anytime soon. It must be annoying having to hear over and over by all of those researchers and truth seekers that it goes back to Jesus. Yeah. When a person of Bible study, claiming to do research as a scholar, and they claim that Jesus is true, they're a fraud. You know instantly. Anybody who claims that the first creed of Christianity and Jesus being true, you know that they're a joke and you don't listen to them. They are false. But was Joseph Smith a Jew? Trial of faith? What? does the Book of Mormon, our keystone, say? The answer is yes. I mean, if you're related to Joseph and you have Jewish heritage, actual DNA Jewish of the modern, no. See, I have Ashkenazi Jewish in me. Joseph Smith may also. I don't know. There's people who, the church has done DNA research. There's some Irish potential there as well, but that's not the thing to focus on. Joseph Smith Sr. was a new Israelite in Vermont. Even though Nathaniel Wood botched it with the wood scrape, Joseph Smith Sr. still was a master at Jewish Kabbalah, as you can read in the revised 116 pages. That goes all the way to Mosiah, which is more than 116 pages. But nonetheless, that is what we are as Mormons and joining the church as converts. We are of the house of Israel. It's a symbol for mankind. And because the house of Israel was not real, the Jews during the Roman period time that wrote the scriptures used the house of Israel as the prophecy for the latter days. And so even though there were groups that lived in northern Israel when Assyria conquered them, that is historical fact, and there are Jews in Judah when Babylon came and took them hostage into Babylon, an established fact. The scriptures are not talking about literal history, and that needs to be understood. So when I did the Isaiah passage today, going over it, it was very clear it's not about literal history. He's prophesying about the future. And so Joseph Smith is Messiah ben Joseph of the new Israelites. But you don't see new Israelites. You see descendants and seed of the house of Israel instead. Because Joseph Smith Sr. has to try to distance himself from his Vermont religion, as he has to separate himself from his Master Mason Yorkrites Lodge with the Knights Templar. Because he already learned that Martin Harris stealing the 116 pages was a result of too much Yorkrites in there. And so he had to tone it down by inputting Jewish Kabbalah to mix it up and cover it up. And so you see a few of it. You see Jacob's mystic tie farewell speech of, I have that in the queue, Robert Burns, his farewell address in 1786 at the St. James Lodge. Tar Bolton, mystic tie, adieu, and brethren adieu, blah, blah, blah. There in Jacob chapter 7. Brethren adieu. As well as Solomon's temple is there in the promised land, new promised land, as Nephi has to have an exodus from the great and abominable church of Laman and go to the new Zion of Nephi, building the mountain city of Solomon, the temple. And so, yeah, lots of things to be paying attention to, but not getting hung up on current stuff to be imposed in the history. Don't do that. And so, if he's an Ashkenazi Jew, great, but that's not as important to the bigger picture. Do Jews see Joseph Smith as a scammer or a replacement religion pusher? Well, because of Brigham Young, the Jews don't recognize him as anything. They don't care. It is Christians that get obsessed with Joseph Smith. And it is Christians who are the majority, the high majority, who join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so those who leave are Christian thinkers. And so they're the ones that call Joseph a fraud and a scammer and all that stuff, because they feel betrayed that Joseph Smith is not a true Christian. This was Brigham Young's trap. And so nobody interprets Joseph Smith as a Jew. And so thus, like, the Jews don't acknowledge the New Testament because Christians fully occupied it. Likewise, they don't accept the Book of Mormon, especially after Spencer W. Kimball put another testament of Jesus Christ on there. And it's important to understand that that was put on by Spencer W. Kimball in 1982, when Avraham Gileadi joined the church before then, as he was involved during the 70s to assist the church with the footnoting program. And so he was in a library in Jerusalem, or probably the library in Jerusalem, when he asked about Jewish books, and the librarian said, well, this Book of Mormon here says it's about Jews. She apparently never read it, but knew from the first page, 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2, that it was set in the time period of the pre-Babylonian captivity Jewish Egyptians, and thus King Zedekiah's starting reign. And so he checked it out, and he recognized the Jewishness in it, but when the church came a-knocking, you have to believe full Christian or you're out. And so he came back crawling on his hands and knees, begging to come back, and now he does full Christian and claims that he's the Jewish expert. He's not. Once you throw Jesus and Christianity in, you're wrong. Your authority is gone. You are not a true scholar. And so despite his claims to being the expert on Isaiah, because he throws in Jesus, he's automatically wrong. So, but the local rabbi here in Utah that has had a long time friendship with the church, or so he thought, until the first presidency statement after October 7th. He felt betrayed by the church that he thought he had a friendship with, because the church refused to call it a terrorist act. And so it's clear that despite the Book of Mormon, he's never bothered with the Book of Mormon. He just sees the church as a Christian church, as they claim they are. And so, yeah, he's unaware that Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are to be interpreted as Jewish. And so the Jews have no clue, because they just don't know that they're supposed to use their Jewish traditions on it. But if you were a missionary and you came across a Jew on your mission, you'd need to know and understand the understanding and learning of the Jews in order to communicate with them. Because too many Mormons fail because they don't understand who they're talking with. They don't understand the religion of who they're talking with. And so when Mormons go out to somebody who's not Christian, and even somebody who is Christian, Christians say no when you tell them that Heavenly Father and Jesus have separate bodies of flesh and bone. That's where Christians go, nope, Musion, not real. So you're wrong. But likewise, if you talk to an Islamist, you have to understand you're not going to be able to push Christianity on them. They will not accept the Book of Mormon. They will consider it a heathen book and consider you the enemy. And so you need to find common ground, building on relationships of trust, building on common beliefs, to con them into joining in paying the church money. Similar to a Jew. And so for a Jew, you don't go first to 3rd Nephi chapter 11, as all Mormons do. Instead, you take a Jew to 2nd Nephi chapter 3, verse 5. Nobody does that. Church won't teach you to do that to a Jew. And then they would go, wait a minute, didn't you say that the founder of your religion is Joseph Smith Jr.? For verse 15? 15. That Messiah ben Joseph is the name of Joseph and the name of his father. Then the Jew will get that spiritual witness feeling that it's true. And so then he'll then ask, how do you see your religion in preparing for your Messiah ben David? And then the missionaries will go, what? What are you talking about? It's Jesus. And then you lose the Jew. And so apparently you're watching a rabbi, Tovia Singer, who said that Mormons were created to show Christians what it feels like for Jews to have Christians replacing their scriptures and doctrine. Almost. See, he's thinking in terms of Christianity. Because Mormons, with Heavenly Father and Jesus as separate physical beings, are replacing Christians' first creed of the Musion, nature and character. But no, it's Brigham Young who did to Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon what Constantine did to the Jews. He does not see that because he thinks that the Book of Mormon is Christian. But he's on the right track. Just take him to 2 Nephi chapter 3, verse 5. And then watch his eyes bulge out and start to breathe heavily as he's going, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, the church never told me this. But, alas, the church has done irreparable damage. So then, Trial of Faith asks, if Joseph Smith Jr. was studying the Book of Mormon, when you say that Joseph knew women are plain, pure, and precious, get the quote right. Let's give it to you. You may not remember when I went over that. Because Benson refers to that quote. So I love to tease him over that. Oops, wrong plane. No, not planes. Oh, there is no plane? So it is, yeah, I did spell it wrong. Pure and precious. Just one. 1 Nephi chapter 14. Oh my God. Typing errors. Let's see. 23. Wherefore the things which he shall write are just and true, and behold, they are written in a book, which thou beholdest proceedeth out of the mouth of a Jew. Jew. And at the time they proceeded out of the mouth of the Jew, or in other words, the time the book proceeded, you got to understand the Jews wrote several books. Many books. They're talking about the Bible as a collection of Jewish works. That was done by Christians. 2 Nephi 29 explains that for you. And so he's talking about the whole Bible, even though they're not saying the whole Bible. And so it's multiple Jews, not just one, as they're saying, the Jew. Book proceeded out of the mouth of the Jew. The things which were written were plain, pure, and most precious, and easy to the understanding of all men. Like I said, 3 Nephi 11 has Christians complaining. 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5, Jews understand it. It would be easy for them to figure it out. Then they would be very critical at that point, though. After their eyes bulge out, they start to breathe a little bit heavy because they're recognizing their Messiah being referred to in the learning of the Jews. And when they find out that Messiah ben Joseph is Joseph Smith Jr., this is where their checklist will automatically kick in for them to run the test to make sure if Joseph Smith is a true or a false Messiah. And so when the church has a whole bunch of lies about Joseph Smith, he's going to fail. But if the Jews were to get the correct history of Joseph Smith, he would pass. But the church refuses to give the accurate history of what happened. They would have to talk with me, although Mormons would disagree. Let's see. When you say that Joseph Smith knew women, or the plot of the Danites, oh, you're talking about Adam fell that men might be, that it wasn't Eve that fell. The plot of the Danites, the polygamy. Yeah, the Jacob passage was about no polygamy, and the women, I added the original Bible because of the Adam fell that men might be, not Eve fell. So I was mixing it up there. But the Danites purposely used Christianity, which, with a physical deities, now you have a greater abomination than what the Christians did to the Jews, which Tovia recognized as well, even though he doesn't understand the original Jewish. Because now Heavenly Father comes from outer space, rapes his 14-year-old daughter, and abandons her with the baby, but it's okay, it's rape baby Jesus to save everybody. And so the church hopes you ignore the rape of a 15-year-old daughter, or 14-year-old daughter, and focus on Jesus. He's come to save you after you're murdered. He'll resurrect you. Everybody will be resurrected. That's the Danites. This is the terrorism of the Danites that is exactly the same as Islam. Islam is not a religion. They're a terrorist organization demanding that everybody accept the name Allah for God. And Muhammad started off going from village to village, burning down the villages and force recruiting or murdering with raping and the polygamy that he instituted, and the jihad of dying in the holy war, as they call it, to get 72 child bride virgins, to justify your suicidal tendencies, to go in and murder other people if they don't believe like you. And this is the Danites. This is what they did to Mormons when they caused the war in 1838. Join us or die. And they said, Joseph Smith is our leader. He's in charge of all this. He's telling us to do all this. And then finally, the year before Brigham Young died, he released Section 117, which, even though it's a forged document, says that Joseph Smith was not the leader of the Danites. Not a single church historian, whether you're a Mormon or an ex-fo Nevermo, nobody gets it right. Nobody does a thorough research of this church. I do. And so everybody misses it. And so I'm the one that therefore found out the forged documents. And so I understand exactly what Mark Hoffman did and why he did it. And everybody else says, oh, we'll never know. Why did he do that? Church lies about church history. Real simple. And so, Joseph Smith translation references. Okay, you're listing a bunch of stuff here. And so, the Joseph Smith translation, Senior was clearly involved, but Junior was there doing it with him. Whereas the Book of Mormon, no. Joseph Smith was not with Sidney Rigdon helping as scribe for the Book of Mormon. That was Oliver Cowdery. And the reason why is because Martin Harris demanded he be a part of it. If it wasn't for that, we would never have Martin Harris involved. We would just have Joseph Smith arising one day saying, I've published a book. And it would be completely different because the 116 pages would be the original. And so, yeah, there's a big difference because of Martin Harris and his evil theft of the original 116 pages. But otherwise, no, it was the way it was because of that. And so because Joseph worked on the farm of Martin Harris, and Martin Harris knew of the rocks in a hat trick as a kid, Joseph Smith let Martin Harris assume things that were not true because he needed Martin Harris to pay for the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith was given his first babysitting job, and he failed. Okay, so there's a much bigger picture that's going on. And so after the Book of Mormon is finished, Joseph Smith needs to read it. He needs to know what's going on in it. So thus he's studying it, and sure enough, that was confirmed by the still Mormon guy who did his channel based on the 1830 Book of Mormon of Joseph Smith, saying that he's against polygamy. And I already knew all that information, but now that's the final thing. It's now fact. Joseph Smith had nothing to do with the composition of the Book of Mormon. He needed to study the Book of Mormon when it was published. And so his 1830 Book of Mormon shows just that he is now studying his Book of Mormon. But with Sidney Rigdon joining later that year, they put him right to work to pay him back, because Alexander Campbell refused to let him do a revision of the Bible. And so he was paid instantly for what he wanted. He was able to put his doctrines at the end of the Book of Mormon because of the extra time he had. And so the sacrament and the babies under 8, all of that is Sidney Rigdon's from his Campbellite Baptist religion, of his variation of it. And then and so preaching, having a Sabbath day for the sacrament and sermons, that was all Sidney Rigdon. Because the Smiths were Congregationalists, and everybody misses it. And so that Nathaniel Wood, as New Israelite, was a variation of Congregationalist. And so that's why Junior in his first vision talks about Presbyterians, Baptists, and Methodists. Nobody else, just those 3. It's because Presbyterian was the dumbass who told the family that Alvin's going to burn in hell because he didn't get baptized. The Methodists are Emma Smith and Brigham Young, or Emma Hale and Brigham Young. And then the Baptist, Sidney Rigdon. Knowing the true history helps you understand the scriptures that Joseph Smith writes. And so, Senior is purposely made the patriarch from the beginning, so that he can be involved to make sure that Junior gets on the right track. And so we see by 1838, with his visionary accounts, he's there. The apprentice has become the master by that point. It's very obvious. Even in 1836, with his visionary account in the Kirtland Temple, which predates the 1830 first visionary accounts, first and second visions, you see that he is still the master. He does make an error. It's not Elias, it's Elishua, but nonetheless, you can let those things go. And even in 1838, he makes an error in the papyrus translations with the facsimile explanations. The prince is called the waiter or servant, and the bride is called the prince. But no, the female pharaoh is correct. Everybody thinks Joseph Smith got that wrong, and they laugh at him because it's blatantly obvious she's got boobs. She's the female pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, you dumbasses. So, when you say Joseph was so awesome, you mean Senior? No, both. As Junior begins to learn things, you can see his development as Senior is no longer the one writing the scriptures. Junior now has to be the one to write the scriptures. They're now bringing in new converts. They're having to listen to Junior. So Junior has to know the religion by now. And so he's being baptized by fire. He has to cram. And so, but he picked it up pretty well. I'm very impressed. But it's Senior who's the mastermind of the religion. He's the one who knew the dates and utilized them. He's Senior. Oh my God. The Danites, the Illuminati, did not know what Senior knew. But because Senior knew it, he's able to give us further bombshells that just bring me to tears. When I talk about the 600 years from the time Lehi left Jerusalem, that's senior. That was brilliant. That is him using the Knights Templar coding, but uses the Jewish Kabbalah, not just the Knights Templar coding. Just brilliant the way he utilized numbers for dating as well as astronomy for the scriptures. Just brilliant. A brilliant mind Senior had. And so, but yeah, Junior was picking it up. He was catching on. And especially after Senior dies in 1840, being murdered by the Danites in Nauvoo, Junior is able to go it himself and hold his own. 19 July 1840, right there was Senior's about to be assassinated by the poisoning of the Danites, as many were getting poisoned who remained faithful to Joseph. Let me see if I can find when he died to put it into context. Because Joseph Smith exposes Brigham Young as the enemy and talks about the latter days in greater detail in that passage that Brigham Young refused to publish as a result. September 14th, 1840. So July, August, September, 2 months later, the Danites murder Senior. And was it Don Carlos? And some others also were assassinated by the Danites by poisoning. And then finally, you're talking about Junior or Senior here at 3930. I don't know. Have no clue. Have no clue. So, yeah. But again, if I'm talking about something early on, like the 116 pages or even the whole Book of Mormon, if I'm talking about the initial Doctrine and Covenants stuff, it's Senior. Even the Joseph Smith translation, Senior was overseeing it. So in Revelation chapter 12, that's Senior, and Junior is there learning it with them. So Signy Rigdon is also there learning it. And then we have another woman who made a comment. There was another person who made a comment on also on the same video, brand new LDS Mormon Church President Oaks, which is a bombshell breakout video, apparently. I don't know why. The follow-up is better, but YouTube's shutting that one down from people. Michael A. or Michelle A. or Michelle H. Did a naughty no-no on my channel. I do not allow people to have separate conversations away from me on my videos. Especially when you're attacking people that I approved. I do not want that. And the only way to protect people on my own channel is to hold all comments for review. But on ANWMS, I'm guessing Michelle H, says, "This is an Easter message. It will air closer to Easter." No, dear. That was it. They stopped doing a printed First Presidency Easter message. And instead, Oaks comes out with this short 4-minute video clip. That was it. That's the First Presidency Christmas message. Easter message. He gave it. Now, if they're going to start a new tradition of doing both a video and a First Presidency statement, that seems unlikely. Nelson's on his deathbed. But nonetheless, this was unprecedented. This was something new, and I'm to blame. But the church has to do all in their power to make sure nobody knows the connection between me and the church. Just like they don't want my connection with Chief Brown to be known to the public. But I've noticed today that the news has now been silenced regarding Chief Brown. It's all stopped. They all did their token video. All were allowed to do their one token video. And the church said, no more. And so only I keep rubbing it in, showing my clip that I said, Chief Brown, I gave you all the documents, evidence, recordings, and receipts necessary to shut down this church and lock them up. You have failed to do your job, and thus you are a co-conspirator with the church and their crimes. And instead, the consequences happened as I knew they would. I've seen this pattern. I've told you this pattern. That the church uses their Strengthening Church Members Committee. They stalk me. And whenever I talk about somebody, they go after them to shut them down. They have done that to channels I like, such as fashion channels. They stalk me and wrongly accuse women of being porn. They came to my brother. They came to my parents. They came to bishops and stake presidents. They came to property management. All to attack me, to hurt me, to steal from me, to murder me. Because the church ordered them to do it. And knowing this, knowing that it's not just me that they do it to, I told you guys in videos, they've done it to John DeLynn. A number of people who get interviewed by John DeLynn gets in the limelight of the Strengthening Church Members Committee, and then they get excommunicated. Not a coincidence. And Gaddy versus COP. Kay Birmingham suing the church on behalf of her client from North Carolina. Here in Utah, the first ever female magistrate judge in Utah approves the case to go forward. Oops. She was under review at that time. She had been passing her review. It was looking like she was going to be approved for another term. Until she approved Gaddy versus COP. And then all of a sudden, they found out her past. Oh, you had a client, or you had a defendant who was on just a drug possession charge. No weapons, just a drug possession charge. And you sent it rightfully to the drug court. And the drug court let him go back out into society, and the person obtained a gun and shot a cop. That was their excuse for firing her. to protect the church, to punish her for allowing that case to proceed, for which it then went before Judge Shelby, who was given the chief judge position because he was compromised to the church even though he left the church. The church knows they can trust Shelby. That's why he's taking his time, hoping people forget. And then one of these weekends, on Friday, right before close, he'll release it to allow the church to go free, even though he knows tithing is not a donation. It's the law. Everybody can read section 119, verses 5 and 6. Repeats, the law. A law is not a donation. And so, yeah, this is a pattern of practice. I knew that the church would do this to Chief Brown. That's why I brought him up. I set the whole thing in motion. That's why I first did the pictures with him with the homeless, letting him know he's not doing his job. And then, by not doing his job, I then said, "You failed to do your job. I'm now going to give you a bombshell." I told him about the church. And he still did nothing with it. And I've been calling him out in videos. And the Strengthening Church Members Committee heard it. And then it got through to Sister Mendenhall. And she fired him instantly. She's an obedient girl. And so, yeah, her excuse, he's not handling the homeless crisis. That's your job, dear sister. The mayor has to set up housing for the homeless. It's a record-breaking number, 3,000 this year. Normally it's around 1,000. It was over 3,000. It was a massive jump from last year. And so she fires the chief of police because they're understaffed and don't know where to take the homeless because the shelters are all full. Are you kidding me? And so, yes, I knew that would happen. I lured out the Strengthening Church Members Committee, knowing they would do that. They've done it to me before. That's why I told you the channels that were banned, the fashion channels. Did you see that video? That was me. They know I go to those and they shut them down to keep me from viewing them. There was no reason to. They're not porn. Women are not porn. This church is obsessed with porn because they're evil. They want to distract you away from prostituting Mormon women in the temples. And so, because of this, yeah, we're posting it tomorrow. I noticed the employee is not working tonight. And so, because of this pattern of practice, I purposely set things in motion for Chief Brown, knowing the Strengthening Church Members Committee would go, "What? You gave him what?" And that they would instantly respond to get him fired, as is their pattern of practice. Sure enough, they did. And they got through Sister Mendenhall. I was running the test. I run the test on everything. Another confirmation. And so, the only thing left because they gave Mike Brown till the end of the month. Oops. So let's see what Chief Brown will do. Will he be a lame duck for the rest of the time, like everybody else has been? Or, that magistrate judge, by the way, after she got fired, she was then assigned to my case. She was a lame duck judge. And so, we'll see if Chief Brown will now do his job, since he's getting fired for not doing his job. But it's not for homeless that he should be doing his job for, to get back at those responsible. We shall see in the coming days, because today was a holiday. Take that, strengthening church members. You just got the church in trouble. Hopefully. Because you'll also notice that I've been reporting to Pam Bondi and the FBI, but apparently it's a ghost town at the FBI. That'll be for Trump Eyes 2025 tomorrow morning, after I get this one uploaded. How much more time? Oh, yeah, I'll finish watching Castle, that episode, and hop into bed. But, and so, yeah, the church does not respect my intelligence. And that I can use against them. And it's hilarious. So, to finish it off, there was a Jody Orgill Brown. She apparently is single. And it's to the brand new LDS Mormon Church President Oaks with Resurrected Jesus Christ. And so I show you the picture. Oaks with Jesus. Because remember, Jesus isn't real. The church is lying to you with a statue god of Jesus, which is a violation of the Ten Commandments. That's how the Danites are fooling you. And a resurrected Mormon Jesus is here, and then I put Deuteronomy 5:6-9. Did she read it? Did you read it? I just told you what it is. It's about no other idol god statues. It's the Jewish law, commandments. And so pay attention, because I feel bad for her. She had a stroke with a massive tumor in her brain, right there in the center. She shows the brain scan. And she's a psychologist, as she's an anti-fragile person, which is code for another type of psychologist. You know, treatment centers have care specialists. They love to change the words on you to trick you. It's a psychologist. They're brainwashing you. They're using drugs on Oaks to cause his tardive dyskinesia. Oops. That was a failure. They'll never do that one again. Because tardive dyskinesia is caused by psychotropic drugs. Psychotropic drugs are given to people who are diagnosed with mental retardation, whether it be dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even though they're medical, if they're legitimate, it's unfortunate that psychologists get thrown in to be their caregivers because they can experiment on people using big pharma. But it's well established that any psychotropic drug used by psychologists causes damage to humans. And so Utah women, Mormon women, are the highest per capita that take depression drugs because of all the pressure that the church abuses them with. They get depressed and just emotionally, spiritually, physically run down by this church. And so the church then says, go to family services, which is a psychology place, and the psychiatrists give them depression drugs. And we've now just found out, after the number of years of testing, that those on even depression drugs are murdering them, shortening their lifespan. Mormon women are getting murdered for being abused by the church and unable to cope with it, and deal with it, and get over it, turn that frown upside down. And I can't get women to understand this. And it's sad that Mormon women would rather be abused than be saved. What's up with that? Do I need to send in Idaho Chick to tell you what's up? She doesn't need a man in her life. She'll set you straight. And so Jody does videos on her channel. That's a kind of dangerous thing to do, Jody. She comes to one video. This is the first and only time she has appeared. She comes to one video of mine. I have over 8.4K videos. She comes to one. And it's a 30-minute video. She does not know me. She didn't bother to do her research. She is making a false judgment. It's blatantly obvious. And so this is what she says. He is not the church president. She makes that her issue to stand on. She has not been watching the videos where I talk about Oakes is on his deathbed. Because when Monson was on his deathbed, somebody was stamping his signature on things getting done in this church. Not supposed to. But, yeah, Nelson was running the church while Monson was on his deathbed. Oakes is next. Nelson is on his deathbed, just like the Pope. That's for Trump Ice 2025 for tomorrow. And allergies are causing problems for me. And so she does not understand. But she uses this to blow it out of proportion. A beam from a moat. You do know your beam and moat, right? You've been watching the videos where I go over beam and moat. How I'm able to shut people down when they dare to attack me. And that's why it's sad. She still has the drooping lips because of the stroke that she had. And so it is unfortunate that she's a psychologist. She has had brain damage from the stroke, and that she's got the physical consequences of the stroke. That she, being single and a very attractive woman, nonetheless, all alone, going around doing touring of how psychology is true, follow me, I'm your God. Because that's what she's preaching. She's preaching another God, even though she does talk about Jesus, which automatically makes everything she says false. Not just from psychology, that everything is false, but from Jesus, everything is false. So now she's picking on me for the title, not understanding one and only one video, false judgment. She's making it a beam from the moat that she is accusing. See where this is going to lead? If the facts in the title are wrong, no, they're not. False accusation. How can the rest of this video be trusted? See, she is using this as her attack on the whole content when she is making a false accusation. She's already automatically wrong before we get to anything else by saying that the title is wrong, because she's made a false judgment. It was a hasty judgment. She's small sampling, only one video out of 8.4K. This was a false judgment. She needs to follow me. She needs to understand first before being understood. You can't go in imposing Christian Jesus psychology when that is not my channel. That is a psychological tactic. That is a Christian tactic that she is using on me in her comment. And this is a hate thing to do. This is hate speech that she is doing because it's a false judgment. And so her stroke, if I were to see that being used in there, would also be used as a guilt trip mechanism to stir up my emotions, to make me feel guilty and shamed. She doesn't, though. Good for her. But I went and checked her out to see where she's coming from. And I did. She used Jesus. She used psychology. Factual, eternal laws of falsehood. Sorry, Jody. She then, by doing it to me, reveals that she is guilty as the real beam. Using psychology and Jesus. So sad that I cannot get through to Mormons. It also doesn't take into account the context or audience or any of the quotes. The title? She's trying to claim that I need to appeal to faith-promoting Mormons by flattering, pacifying, and deceiving them, using psychology and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We must be faith-promoting. Anything that's not faith-promoting, such as truth, cannot be used. Or any of the quotes. I just read to you the quote from the title thing. There was others, but she does not understand the context. She does not understand my presentation. Screw my audience. They will come to my videos if they're interested, or if they're not interested. I'm not doing this to get attention like she is. She uses psychology, uses Jesus to become popular. She gets paid. That's how big of a beam she's got going. She's an evil woman. And it's sad that she's been through a stroke. I saw my grandpa as the victim of a stroke. It is not pleasant. You get the whole left side, just black and blue marks as if somebody had beat him. And you have the facial drooping on the left side. It is not something to wish upon anybody. But for her to have gone through that and now go all in on falsehood and getting paid for it, it's sad. It's like a near-death experience person like Chad Daybell, who's now going to prison to be executed for what he did. And so, now she's doing, if I were to take your quotes out of context, I only used one clip from him. I did not take it out of context. I showed the others from the screenshots of his quotes, and then I added to it because I understand what he means. Jesus Christ's resurrection, he says, is literal. No, it's not. That's Christian botching of it. She does not know the learning of the Jews. She's making a huge mistake doing this. You know, if I could trust YouTube, I would have reported her. That would have not gone over well with her having a channel trying to become popular and getting money for her stuff. People cannot attack other people using your beliefs as factual, especially when they're falsehoods, because you don't use science. And so then she has trouble using her cell phone, or I don't know if this is still a remnant of her getting a stroke. They be hard to understand. And so I'm not going to pick on that. A regular person, yeah, that's a cell phone typing error. As you meant them. And so she's assuming that because I didn't quote his whole talk, and you got to understand, he's a former prosecutor. He talks about how he was a Supreme Court justice, throwing his wife under the bus and blaming her to prop him up as the judge, to present to Mormons an authority which he does not have. He's exalting himself by throwing his wife under the bus. But the way they talk is to throw in a falsehood, then immediately go to a different subject matter, and then come back and throw in another falsehood, go on to a different subject matter, throw in another falsehood. Oakes is the master of this as a former prosecutor and chief judge of Utah. He knows how to manipulate the language to throw in his agenda that it violates the law as a lawyer. And any good defense lawyer would call him out on that in courtrooms. Unfortunately, if they're all taught at BYU, And so, yeah, his clips are just gold. That's why I keep threatening him. Your own words I am going to use against you. And I've been putting them out there. Young women, you are becoming pornography. It is not the will of God that women should hold priesthood office. And talking about the resurrection. That we will all be resurrected. Don't fear the reaper. Because this church is a criminal terrorist organization requiring Mormons to commit suicide to protect the church. And Jody does not understand this. And so she then says, shut up, Travis. Why not spend your time building up your own faith? She's missed those recent ones, let alone all these years, where I explained very clearly, faith without fruit is dead. But she uses psychology, and she uses the church, which are a massive beam in her eye. And here she is saying, shut up, Travis. You need to be faith promoting to this church. You need to leave them alone if you can't say anything nice. Instead of trying to tear others down. If you don't have a testimony, dear, you do not belong on my channel. And you just said you don't have a testimony. Faith is not a spiritual witness. It's not a physical witness. And therefore you can't testify of anything. All you got is faith in the Word. You've got nothing to show for it. And that's what all of her presentations are. Nothing. It's all a bunch of faith talk. Trying to give people false hope when she almost died from a cancer in her brain. And instead of talking about how people need to be going into their doctors to get scanned for early detection of cancers, she's instead talking about how Jesus saved her. Her ear was blown off. It's a Trump reference. Did you catch that? His ear's not blown off. What are you talking about? We see your ear. You then turn the ear to the camera. He lied. And so then she says, how does this help anyone? You need to listen to my words and produce the results, dear. And you don't know how to do it. That's what helps. Faith without works is dead means you got to produce the fruit. A false prophet only gives you stuff to have faith in. They don't want you to produce the results of their words. They just want you to believe them. Because their fruit are corrupt. Falsehoods. That's why they're called false prophets. Matthew chapter 7, dear. Especially the cause of Christians. Ta-da. Game, set, match. Get off my channel. She is a broken woman because of her cancer. And then she went and embraced a Korah whore. where the Zoramites, who were kicked out because of their poverty, met Alma and Amulek that taught them correctly about faith to produce the results. Because the Zoramites were only teaching faith only in Jesus, in a Jewish synagogue.